Welcome to Trust Talks and Digital Dives, where we delve into the world of trust in the digital age. Trust Talks and Digital Dives is produced by DIACC, a nonprofit organization that fosters secure and privacy-enhancing access to digital services in Canada and globally. Whether you're navigating the complexities of data privacy, pondering the impact of AI on trust, or curious about how technology shapes our relationships, you're in the right place. I'm Joni Brennan, president of the DIACC, and I'll be your host. This episode discusses the foundations of the financial regulatory system and the financial industry capabilities to detect human trafficking. You'll hear a conversation between myself and Sarah Paquet, director and CEO of the regulatory body FINTRAC. Sarah's passionate about helping people, and she always centers their needs first. Let's dive into digital trust with Sarah. I have a very special guest joining us today, Sarah Paquet. She's director and CEO of FINTRAC, and she's a champion for gender representation and equality in industry, and particularly for women in STEM. I've had the honor to participate in activities that she's coordinated to encourage young women leaders for their advancement in technology and finance. We're grateful to have you with us, and our audience is looking forward to hearing your insights. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Sarah, our organization, the DIACC, was established out of a recommendation of the Department of Finance. And we have an audience that pays attention to the financial ecosystem, its implications and impacts. But for listeners who may not know you, would you introduce yourself and tell us why this topic is so important for you?
Thank you. So at FINTRAC, our mandate is to really combat money laundering and terrorist financing activities, and also to prevent threats to the security of Canada. So often people will think about FINTRAC and AML as obviously financial crime, but associated to white-collar crime. And what I like to say to people is we're not talking about not paying your taxes in some work that you get done at your house. Like, you shouldn't be doing that. But this is not the kind of crime we're looking at. We're looking at human trafficking, as you mentioned, drug trafficking, fraud, and all those crimes have victims. And that's really what should motivate us every day. Is not just about preventing money laundering and terrorist financing, but it's also to save those victims on which the profit is made, because those crimes exist for greed. So if you take away the profit, then the crime is not as appealing anymore. And I hate the fact that people may see money laundering and terrorist financing as a low risk, high reward business. So how do we ensure that it's high risk to commit those crimes and we all work together to fight them?
Ensuring that those who might like to commit fraud know that there will be strong repercussions and consequences is definitely a deterrent to keep them from going out and committing fraud. The work that we do in DIACC focuses on identity verification and tools like digital wallets and credentials to support Know Your Customer and anti-money laundering, which are strong and existing foundations for security. That said, we're all part of a rapidly changing technological ecosystem of innovations, and particularly this is true in the finance and payment spaces. What's the approach of FINTRAC for dealing with the rapid technological changes and innovations in payments and finance to combat fraud and money laundering as we go into the next generation?
Now, I think for us at FINTRAC, it's very important not to miss the opportunity of leveraging technology. And as we all know, it's evolving extremely quickly, so it's even more important to leap forward with technology right now, because if not, it will be even more difficult to be able to get on the train. But I think people need to realize that with all the geopolitical tensions happening right now, with the evolution of technology that we're talking about, well, the bad actors are using technology. So organized crime, terrorists, hostile state actors, they're all using technology. So we need to look at using technology for its potential and also, obviously be aware of the risk and mitigate them. So this is why at FINTRAC, we gave us the vision of becoming a real-time organization. So we want to leverage technology to ensure that we are able to provide feedback right away to reporting entities submitting reports, and our analysts being able to have added value strategic work when they look at those reports, because everything that could be triaged and automated in our processes is going to be done using AI, and then we really use our resources to have high impact work. So by doing that, we're also disclosing to law enforcement faster, and they are able to accelerate their investigation, be more specific about their targets. And at the end, it's all about the victim and saving them faster and helping them rebuild their life faster and preventing new victims being caught. So this is why technology is very important for FINTRAC. We've built our digital foundation, and this year is really the year we're leaping forward with this new vision of FINTRAC in real time and discussing with and challenging reporting entities to do the same.
FINTRAC guidance is a foundation for fighting fraud in our financial system. And we've also noticed that professionals, even outside of finance, who have a need to verify some kind of digital trust about their clients or customers, tend to also lean on FINTRAC for guidance. Do you have thoughts specifically on the benefits of client identification to safeguard privacy and information security?
Yeah, no, it's a very important component in the fight against money laundering and terrorist financing. So we call it KYC, Know Your Customer. So it involves gathering information such as names, addresses, and official identification documents. And when financial institutions and other reporting entities have a clear understanding of who they are, their customers are, they can detect inconsistencies or suspicious behavior. They can assess risk and monitor better. So this is why this component is so important for us. And it also needs to evolve. So what was proper ID 10 years ago, it doesn't mean it's what it is today. And through COVID, we saw that we all needed to evolve and become way more digital. So in 2021, we actually explicitly removed the prohibition from electronic ID from our legislative framework. So then helping modernize and moving forward and ensuring that we are open and transparent, but also evolving in our ways to ID customer.
Changes that might appear small certainly can have big impact. And moving into the digital age means that our regulatory framework and guidances need to be able to comprehend and leverage emerging capabilities. We certainly commend your leadership and to everyone at FINTRAC who are working to address those evolving needs. And with that, I'd like to move a little bit more into looking at the implications of digital disruption. And what was the approach of FINTRAC to even start to consider digital identification in the concept of digital disruption?
So, like I said earlier, statu quo is not a viable option. So we need to move forward, and we need to leverage technology with the right parameters, because if not, we're going to be irrelevant in the face of emerging technology. So our goal at FINTRAC is really to leverage it for good. So AI system can easily be leveraged to automate number of processes, which is going to really accelerate our work. And as I said earlier, help our resources to really focus on added value work. But it will also help us identify trends and patterns and target and networks faster. So that's really how we are leveraging technology. So when you speak about digital ID, that's going to be part of the ecosystem. And as it becomes available, that's definitely something that we will work with.
One core thematic throughout the conversation has been around the collaboration of regulatory bodies and the financial ecosystem. So could you tell us about the approach that FINTRAC takes to work with its regulatory partners, with international allies, businesses, and law enforcement? How does that collaboration come together?
I really believe that 80% of our work is to partner and work collaboratively with others. At the end of the day, we all have a mandate to deliver. And, as the regulator, I have decision to make that nobody can influence us to do, but everything around it, understanding the context of your partners, understanding the work of your stakeholders, or having discussion like we have today to know more about each other and see how can we leverage each other. It's very important. So we work very closely with Department of Finance, obviously, but all the other 12 regime partners. We work also with international organizations, but also other FIUs. So as part of Egmont, there's more than 170 members in Egmont. And the goal of the Egmont organization is for FIUs to be able to share information securely in between themselves. So we're very active there. But we also work closely with the academic, the non-for-profit, the private sector. And I think our PPPs, our public-private partnership, are a very good example of that. So Timea Anegi, a survivor of human trafficking, asked for help one day in an ACAMS conference. And this is when one bank and FINTRAC and law enforcement decided to say, yes, we're going to help. And this is when we sat down with her, understand better about the crime and the context and the patterns, and were able to identify indicators that became an operational alerts that was shared with all the businesses. So when everybody's more educated about the crime and its typology, then everybody's more aware, and then we started getting better reporting. Then we had even more information about the crime and its patterns. And then we were able to include another 60 indicators into our operational alert. And as we hear more and more about human trafficking, our next update is going to be more focused on the labor of human trafficking for labor versus human trafficking for sex trade. So I think this is the best example to show that when we really work together, we have this as 80% space where our mandates are overlapping and we can have a bigger impact. And following Protect, which was our first PPP, we did 6 others. And that's really provide the industry with the focus and with the priorities. When we all focus on child exploitation over the internet, or we all focus on fentanyl, we all know those are important crimes happening in our society, and it's important to focus on them and work together. We are having bigger impact. So that's very important for us.
It's impressive to hear what you've cited and what you've done through public and private partnerships, collaborations, and to hear the numbers and statistics you've cited today. These details provide big inspiration for what can happen when different organizations, public and private, come together with a common cause and a common set of principles to help people, especially in the context of fighting human trafficking. Now, we know that fighting human trafficking is urgent for many purposes, but what are the specific challenges for victims of human trafficking who often lose their identification documentation and they don't have the tools or access to be able to prove their identity? Their inability to have these types of documents and prove their identity further excludes them from societal and legal protection. Do you have advice for people who are in these dire situations and how they can get help in terms of being able to prove their identity again?
So when we heard about that problematic, and again, it's when you work with survivors that you will hear about those impediments. And then when you see that your legislative framework can be an impediment of them getting their life back, you want to be part of the solution. So when we heard about that, we work with an international organization called Finance Against Slavery and Trafficking Survivor Inclusion Initiative. And that's exactly their goal. They want to help the survivor having access to banking services. And then Scotiabank decided to lead an initiative to build a program and see if we can find a way to actually ID the victim outside of the usual ID you will work with. So we work with them. We work with FINTRAC, which is the Financial Consumer Agency of Canada, and really look at our legislative and regulation framework to ensure that we were not in the way of getting survivor access to banking system. And we found a way. We developed a program which was completely different from how you would usually ID customer. And we all agreed that would be an appropriate way to meet the Know Your Client obligation, and we move forward. So, and under the leadership of that international institution, working with survivors organization and the lead from Scotiabank, bringing other banks into the program. Now survivor can have access to banking system, even if some of the usual ID that you and I are taking for granted have been taken away from them. So I think that's demonstrate when you want to accomplish something, working together and really finding a solution, then you can see through a path to do good, because our system is there to do good and support victims. So we were very proud of being able to work that out very quickly.
Sarah, you and the team at FINTRAC should really be proud of what you've accomplished and the way that you've also centered the needs and urgency of victims. I commend you, your partners, and collaborators for putting people at the center of everything that you've done. You've shared so many insights about yourself and FINTRAC and how the foundations of our financial, regulatory, and ecosystem can come together, and particularly when there's a common set of values and urgency to act. Could you share some pieces of actionable advice for our audience, for those who'd like to learn more or like to learn more about what you're doing to fight human trafficking, and particularly about how the financial regulatory framework plays an important role? What advice can you share for our audience?
I think you should never lose sight of the impact. So you have real-time, real-world problems, and we need real-time responses and results. When people understand exactly why you want to do something and why it's important, then you need to think about, okay, what is the impact I want to have, and how long can I wait to get this impact? So when we're talking about the victims, FINTRAC moving into real time is a game changer. So I think people should look at those problems in the same way. When we want to protect the integrity of our financial system, the time to act is now. So I think we need to work together to ensure we collaborate. We don't work in our silos. Like, the risk and the problems we're facing are multifaceted. So we need to come together and we need to embrace technology. I think technology has real potential and we need to embrace it. We cannot study it for 5 years before we decide to move ahead, because, we will be probably 10 generations later. So we need to embrace it and, to be a good steward and put the framework in place to have the right control about security, about privacy. But really, we need to move forward and not be afraid to do things differently, to think differently and try new things. Because this is really when we all work together, we leverage all our skills, we leverage technology, that will be able to leap ahead and stay ahead of bad actors. Because don't forget, it's all about the victims and the criminals. They are doing it.
I was going to ask you about the risks of inaction, but I think you covered the risks of inaction, and I appreciate the focus you put on the urgency to move forward. It's of course important to study the problem and be pragmatic, but if we only study, then the risks of inaction when someone's life is in danger are extremely significant. You've also highlighted the difference between the risk of inaction regarding making purchases or investments versus the importance of real-time, available, secure technology when someone's life or safety is in danger. You've really highlighted that for the listeners. We'll continue to watch as FINTRAC moves forward under your leadership and with the many people and organizations that are making up the team working on these challenges and advancing the fight against human trafficking and fraud in Canada. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with our audience before we close?
Oh, I welcome the opportunity to talk to you today, so thank you very much. And the call to action to everyone is be a force for good. We need all of you.
Be a force for good. We need all of you. When we have common values and common priorities, there's a lot that we can do when we work together. Well, we're grateful for your commitments and contributions, for yourself and the whole team at FINTRAC to helping Canadians and advancing a safer global digital economy. Thanks for joining us, Sarah.
Thank you very much.
That's a wrap for today's episode of Trust Talks and Digital Dives. Your support means the world to us. If you found today's conversation insightful, subscribe so you'll never miss an episode. Help us spread the word by sharing Trust Talks and Digital Dives in your networks. So until next time, keep exploring and keep delving into the world of digital trust.